Victoria Beckham has ended her relationship with Meghan Markle after the princess accused her of leaking stories to the press. Is it true or false?
Well, I just feel very pleased for Victoria Beckham that she's out from the chaos more than anything else. I'm not being funny, but this woman just seems to attract drama wherever she goes, Meghan Markle. It wouldn't surprise me if most of her friends back away from her, and I think she's a real troublemaker now. She just seems to be toxic to every relationship that she's in, whether it be her own marriage or that with the royal family or any friendships.
Who do you reckon wants the title more, Victoria Beckham or Meghan Markle?
Well, I don't know, but apparently they were like best buds from what I've read.
According to Meghan.
According to Meghan. But David was actually really good friends with Harry, and apparently it's their relationship that kind of led to this breakdown. It annoys me that I know this.
There was a lot, Pete, there was a lot of them getting together over sports, weren't there?
Yeah, it was.
Beckham and Prince William worked on the Olympic bid in 2012 together, and Harry was involved in the Invictus Games, which I don't think David Beckham was directly involved, but nonetheless, it brought them into contact.
Yeah, I think it was more like the same world, same spheres, that kind of thing.
You know why they've put out, don't you? Because apparently Harry accused David Beckham of, Victoria Beckham of leaking where Meghan gets her hair done.
Yeah,
I think Victoria Beckham has to tell stories, man. She is an Essex girl. We don't, you know.
You take the girl out of it.
I mean, word does Meghan Markle do her hair, that'll stop the traffic. I mean, nobody cares. Are we, James, are we sick of Harry and Meghan yet?
Yes, we are, and I think it's optimistic of her to think that anyone in the press would care about what's leaked, what stories are leaked. Yeah. It would be like me accusing one of my friends of leaking one of my sex videos or something. This is something no one cares about or wants to ever see.
Oh, come on, you run Country Squire magazine. Are Country Squire magazine ever going to buy a story about Harry and Meghan?
No.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. No, but it's quite interesting because I was reading that Tim Bauer, who's one of these royal biographers, was saying that basically what the Sussexes do is they sit and they just read all the negative headlines together about themselves, and they look for people that might have tried to leak things. I was like, how paranoid, how much of a tinfoil hat wearing idiot do you have to be that is how you spend your life?
Apparently Prince William, when he meets a new friend, tells him a confidential story about himself that simply isn't true. And then if he sees it,
that's not a bad idea.
And what he does is apparently he tells a different story to every single person, so he knows he can trace it all back.
If you remember, Dominic Cummings did the same trick. I know it's slightly off topic, but Dominic Cummings did the same trick to try and catch out a government leaker, and it turned out to be a backbench MP, and he had a different kind of email sent out to each person who he thought he could have been, and they managed to catch him because of the one that was leaked. It's an old trick, but it does happen to work.
You've got to be careful. Anna, look, what do you think the royal family should do in the future about Harry and Meghan? Because they continue to hang around, they continue to cause trouble. The Beckhams have contributed significantly to this country and are friends with the royal family, and yet another relationship's burnt.
But I think with the royal family, I think they're being far too inclusive of Harry and Meghan just because of their association with the royal family. They've capitalised off just slandering them across all of their Netflix documentary, Harry's spare book. I think that they should just be turning their backs on them because they completely reject everything that the royal family stands for.
It's hard to turn your back on your son, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it is. But then I think at the same time, if you've got a position like that and you're associated with the royal family and yet like completely slandering them at every opportunity to elevate your profile, I think you have when you're in a title, you've got a title like that, you've got a responsibility almost to this country. People look up to you, and so I think that the royal family need to do the right thing.
And what upsets me more than anything else, she doesn't want that earldom, and I haven't got one. It's just ridiculous. I'd be the Earl of Dumbarton. Mind you, there's also the Dukedom of Ireland.
Growing up becoming a teenager in the 90s, being sparkled meant something completely different.
Right, let's not talk about Essex today.
Okay.
Okay, has Victoria Beckham ended her relationship with Meghan Markle over stories being leaked? Is it true or false?
Yeah,
it's true.
It's true.
It's
true.
Absolutely true! Oh, please, God, no. Jeremy Corbyn and Len Glusky are bringing out a poetry book for Christmas.
But what?
Look, I can only read out what's on it. I'll read it word for word. Just so
Go on, read it again.
It's fair to say that there's been shock in the studio. Okay. Jeremy Corbyn and Len McCluskey are bringing out a book of poetry for Christmas.
Oh, what do you think?
I think it would make Christmas much simpler for me because I don't have to go through all the hassle of writing poisoned pen letters to my friends. I can just send them that.
Yeah, that's the worst Christmas stocking item ever, isn't it? Can you imagine?
Oh, I'm not
getting
sure. Mouldy tangerine was a
But they don't really-
thing. I'll tell you what, I was at...
And some nuts.
Oh, no, you've given the answer now. Have Jeremy Corbyn and Len McCluskey decided to put out a poetry book for Christmas? Is it true or false?
False. That's false. Yeah.
It's absolutely true! Oh, please, God. Look, all I can say to the publishers of the book is there is still time to make this false.
It's quite funny, actually, because it's what it is it's Len and Jeremy Corbyn have... It's like their favourite poems and they're doing commentary on it. But it's got people like Morag Livingston has been involved in it and somebody from the Ben family is involved. It's all the worst people you could ever have in one book.
OK, I appreciate... I mean, the question is over. I do appreciate you confirming that we didn't want to buy the book, but I just don't think there was any danger of that happening anyway. So it's on to your question. An innocent man who's been locked up for 17 years for a crime he didn't commit may have to pay for food and board in the prison he was locked up in.
I think this is probably one of the most shocking stories I've read in quite some time. So it's Andrew Malkinson, and he was accused of rape and he got sentenced to prison. He was given a 7-year sentence, but because he's maintained his innocence, he's not been allowed like parole or anything like that. And he went to the appeals, and that got knocked back. He went to the people that kind of look into miscarriages of justice commission. They got knocked back twice, and this new DNA has come out, and he's found out that he's been found innocent. He's been released. But it turns out that because of the way that the law is written, it says that he might have to pay for his own board whilst he was in prison.
Is that because they won't compensate him?
So so it comes down to the 2006, not to get too technical into it,
But you will.
I will.
Yeah.
It comes down to the Labour government in 2006 kind of really truncated the law over how much you can claim if you've been involved in a miscarriage of justice. And it's a complete mess. And Bob Neal, the Conservative MP, has been kind of leading the charge on this, and Alex Chalk, who's the Justice Secretary, announced, I think it was one day this week, that it is going to be reviewed. But let's remember, this guy had 17 years of his life taken away from him.
Pete.
And then this has just been just a slap in the face. I think it is absolutely terrible.
But Pete, the Ministry for Justice, and I'm sorry to give away the answer, but it's clear you know it already. The Ministry for Justice has said that the compensation must reflect the fact that you have less expenses in prison, including not having to pay for rent.
Yeah,
that was in the official statement.
It is the most tone-deaf, awful thing I've ever read. It was shocking. It was genuinely
Pete,
disgusting.
let me tell you, if you move from where you live at the moment in Fulham just to Wandsworth prison, the rent is less. I can guarantee you.
It's like saying, you know, death is great because you don't have to pay for food costs. You know?
Mind you, the tobacco industry once said that the big advantage of smoking is that governments don't have to pay for long, protracted healthcare in your old age because you won't have one.
You don't have one.
So, well, thanks for that.
But no, one thing I am quite happy with this is, in terms of the kind of politics of it, is everybody has agreed this is just terrible. There's been no infighting over it. All sides have just said this needs to be looked at.
Although, to be fair, Pete, in defence of the Ministry of Justice, and I don't think they can have much of a defence, what they're talking about is an independent assessor who will alter the amount of money given based on all manner of factors, including not having to rent outside prison.
So I think it's up to £1 million. I think it's about £1 million was the rough estimate that the press have got a hold of. I don't know where they've got that figure from, but and they did say that the amount that they would be deducted would not be very substantial, but I still think it's the principle of it that this guy was in prison for a complete miscarriage of justice, and
Unprovably
And presumably with DNA technology, there's going to be a lot more people who are discovered to have miscarriages of justice. We hope that everybody in prison or everyone who's been to prison deserves to be there, but you've got to be realistic. It is right that we do something about compensation for these people, isn't it?
Oh no, absolutely. Especially if you've been sentenced for something that you didn't do, and I think especially especially with you kind of got the CPS, for example, I think you're seeing a lot more of, misjustices. And I know, obviously, like with COVID and the lockdowns, a lot of cases have now been delayed with a backlog of years. So there's also victims who are still waiting like years after a crime was committed to actually see justice or have any response from them just because of all the backlog and delays.
I will say one thing. We've never said this about the criminal justice system in Britain. He served 17 years of a 7-year sentence. Why is it always the other way around? The only bloke who's actually innocent, right?
Yeah.
Had he been guilty, they'd have given him 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to the press conference that the guy gave outside I think it was outside the High Court, and it was had all people from the press were there, and he said, "You guys have come here to report the news," and he said, "What I've just heard in there wasn't news because I knew none of this was true from day one," and I thought the fact that this guy has stood on his own 2 feet and fought, because he could have got out earlier. All he had to do was admit that he did it, and he could have got out after 7 years.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, to stay in there for 10 years to fight like that is an incredibly admirable thing.
Yeah, I think so.
But
Let's give him a round of applause.
Hey.
Come on. But obviously, I think it's relatively obvious which way you're going on this. Anna, given that you knew the name of the bloke, I'd love this now to be false. Which way are you going?
It's true. It's true.
Absolutely true. You've got 40 points, and of course, Lois and James have got no points so far. Horrendous. They're going to really struggle.
We have other strong points.
They're going to really struggle to win the prize, which is a month's worth of prison food made by both the staff at Wandsworth Prison and assisted by Gordon Ramsay. Anyway, so question number 4.
We've got
Here
to
we go.
get this right, James.
LGBT organisation Stonewall has claimed to have seen new scientific evidence that only men can give birth. Is it true or false?
Well, the science is settled. Women no longer exist.
Well, all I can say is well done, feminism, because I've been talking about this for 20 years. And I said, if you keep banging on about a load of nonsense in microaggressions and all this stuff, and there's no difference between men and women, eventually it will turn on us. But even I didn't envisage that the trans thing would be the thing that took away our specialness as girls. I didn't anticipate that at all. But the groundwork, unfortunately, was done by all these feminists who annihilated everything that was special about us and said that we had to be treated the same, which I think is disgusting.
James, my instinct was not to be obsessed with women's rights until I saw them being taken away. And you do feel the same way?
Well, no, it's also back. It's not good for gay rights either, because we're linked into this whole mess. There was, and I've seen attitudes change to gay people, because I was in. I don't know if I should name the club. Actually, I went.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, as long as it's not a really dodgy one.
No. It's Carlton Club.
Oh,
I see.
A really dodgy one. A really dodgy one.
Okay. Let me just stop that there and say it's fair to say that the lags on this end of the table really thought you were going to come up with something like the torture garden.
Oh no, I've been there as well.
Sorry, you were in the Carlton.
You're in the Carlton.
So I was in the Carlton Club, and this a friend of a friend was whispering in my ear all night. I just want you to know, James, I'm completely okay with who you are. and then stuff like, what else did he say? Some of my quite good friends are your way.
Wasn't he quite pro-Tory, though?
Yeah, and it was funny because he actually thought he was being really progressive and accommodating of me.
Yeah.
No, but
Some of my friends have met gay people.
The one thing I will say is Stonewall's also been in the news, because I don't know if you've realised that Keir Starmer's finally learned what a woman is.
Yeah. No way! Well, just before an election?
How convenient. How convenient.
And for a bonus point, Anna, what is a woman?
Adult human female.
Well done, Keir.
you.
Let me tell you something, Keir, and let me talk straight down to the camera and straight down at the radio to you. You know what? It's analysis like that that'll get you where you need to go.
Absolutely. So,
But this is interesting, because Stonewall have massively come out against the Labour Party and said, what are you doing? You were supposed to be on our side of this.
Sorry, just to be clear. So I didn't see this bit.
Yeah.
So Keir Starmer said a woman is an adult female, and Stonewall rebuked him.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah. And then the Labour Party trotted out West Streeting, Labour's version of a Ken doll. And
I think he looks a bit like. I think he looks a bit like Frank Sidebottom.
He does a bit, actually. But no, I think he used to work for Stonewall, if I remember right.
I thought you said he worked for Frank the Cyber.
No, I think he used to be one of the Stonewall lot, and he was out, obviously trotting out saying like, "Oh, everyone needs to calm down," and he gave this awful apology to Rosie Duffield, who's the Labour MP, who got absolutely savaged by her own side for basically saying what we've just said here. And I was just like, if you believe any of these people really believe that it's adult human female, like basic biology facts, then I can't help you anymore. You are beyond help. If you believe Keir Starmer that he thinks this, and it isn't because of polling, and it isn't because of politics, then I'm sorry, you're beyond help.
Yeah, like Rishi apparently is very anti-net zero just before an election. Yeah,
very convenient.
It's interesting, Anna, that a lot of Conservative MPs in the Red Wall have been told that if there is a strong position on Brexit, if there's a strong position on trans rights, then actually they have a chance, whereas otherwise they'll be wiped out.
So it's all about a culture war, isn't it? They don't actually believe what they're saying. And I think, for example, Keir Starmer now coming up and saying this, finally knowing what a woman is very convenient before a general election. And it's just to appease the electorate. But will he stand and protect women's rights and spaces if he actually wins number 10, becomes Prime Minister? I don't think so. No.
Do you have as many rights as your mother?
What, me?
Yeah, it's a serious question. Do you believe that your generation has the same rights as women as your parents' generation? And do you believe that your daughter's generation will have less rights than you?
Oh, no, and it's going to get even... No, I absolutely don't. And I think it's going to get even worse for the next generation because that's the way the world's going. I mean, now men can define themselves as women. They can access women's spaces. They can apparently breastfeed now.
Oh, I've seen this. Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's actually perverse. And they can win female beauty pageants now. I think that this is just going to become a downwards trend and women will constantly have their rights and spaces
stripped away. But don't you think things are turning round a bit?
No.
You don't at all? Oh, I don't know. I've noticed a real hardening up in attitudes
I think there's so much noise in the media, and I think actually for the women who do speak up for their rights, they're the ones that get so much abuse.
Well, let me throw this out and we can all answer it. It doesn't bother me. I think personally, the public are now much more aware of this, but actually, the people in charge are still up for it.
I've tried to work it to my advantage because I've been trying to see a NHS specialist, like a maxillofacial thing for my jaw issues, and the waiting is so long. So on this sheet where I've got to tick what I am, I said that I was an Iranian lesbian, in the hope that I might get seen quicker.
Did it work?
I've not heard back yet.
I've got to be honest with you. I've got a good friend of mine, and I'm not
an Iranian lesbian.
I'm not recommending you do this at all. But whenever the police stop them, what he does is he always says that he is an unemployed Vietnamese surgeon, which apparently just ruins all of their quotas. Because now, once they've found a female Vietnamese surgeon, they have to find like 100 white people in order to.
For the life of me, I can't remember the name of the comedian, but he goes around saying, when it's time to get paid, I'm a he, him, and when it's time for a bonus, I'm a they, them. And I thought, do you know what? I thought that rather sums it up rather nicely.
James, have Stonewall just completely ruined their own credibility, or actually, are they playing a smart game?
No, it's because they had, and in 2009, all the bigotries had been conquered, and so then they needed to get more funding, so they had to push the trans issue. That's it.
Is it true or false?
False.
It's false.
It's absolutely false!
Hey!
That was The Woke That Was, continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick has got into trouble for leaving ministerial papers on his seat at the train when he went for a poo. Is it true or is it false?
Lovely.
I
needed that information.
Do you know much about this?
No, I've heard about this story. Yes,
this has been knocking around for a little while. I think. I don't. And
now, the interesting thing is whether this is true or false based on whether it was wee or poo.
Yeah.
But I'm required to help you in that area by saying that other passengers, if this were true, timed it at 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think I read it. I think I read 4 minutes, but yeah, I was like, I'd say it's either very quick or.
Mind you, it could have been a whoosh and gone.
It could have been, yeah.
Well.
But no, so this is the thing. Didn't they release a photograph, if I remember rightly?
What?
where- No, not of him on the toilet. Down the gutter.
RatesMyPoo.com.
Of the red box being left on one of the tables in first class, and one of his spokesmen had said, well, he's sat in the chair that's next to him, but you can't see him. And I'm like, if this is what we've got to go on, there's not a lot of evidence here that something is majorly wrong. But I suppose the argument is about security, as what the thing is. But you have to remember, Robert Jenrick is the immigration minister, so he's not exactly Mr. Popular with certain people in the country, is he? So it could be people trying to set him up. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility. But I mean, I know, I've met Robert Jenrick. I know people that work for Robert Jenrick. I don't think he's this incompetent, if I'm being honest.
He was nicknamed Robert Generic.
Yeah.
There's just nothing.
Yeah, he is somewhat unforgettable. Somewhat forgettable, sorry. But I don't think there's much to this, if I'm being brutally honest.
I mean, James, are we worried about the situation over immigration in Britain? I mean, I'm more worried. I'm not worried about his toilet habits, though they are of some interest to me. But I'm much more concerned about the net 600,000 people likely to come to the country.
Well, do you know, the town that I grew up in called Buxton in Derbyshire, it's a small Georgian town, population 20,000.
You don't sound very northern.
No, I'm trying to gentrify myself.
It's worked.
It's worked better than it has for us too.
But so tiny population, they're turning the halls of residence for the university students there into a large migrant centre. So 300 fighting age men are going there. The police are against it because they think it's going to have an uprising in crime. There's going to be a huge protest on the 6th of August, I think. Farmers coming down in their tractors. Everyone's opposed to it. And
Are they bringing their pitchforks?
I hope so.
The peasants are revolting. Yeah.
But I just think it was
And they're revolting.
It was so silly of Robert Jenrick to leave those government documents if he was going for a poo, because he could have used them, to wipe.
Oh, God.
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, there we go. There's the government's policy on immigration. That'll do. He makes a fair point, that, James.
Definitely.
The government's immigration policy is all over the place, Anna.
Yeah, it's completely broken. I think that the Conservatives have entirely failed the country on their immigration policy, and Brexit was served to actually get that under control. And not only we've not had a proper Brexit, I think that the immigration crisis has just gone to a point where the country can't even cope. And I think this will be a major losing point for the Conservatives when it comes round to the general election, because the public are fed up. They voted Boris Johnson to get this under control, and they've not seen it.
No.
Though I don't know what Labour are going to do that's any better.
Well, do you think that there's a sort of slight revenge element with the civil service allowing this to happen?
Yeah.
Because the whole point of Brexit was that, we stop uncontrolled immigration, but legal immigration. So they thought, okay.
I'll tell you.
We'll let some people come, really undesirable type people come in. That'll show them. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think, Lois, genuinely. I think that there's a plan to basically go, well, we tried it,
Yes,
but
I
it couldn't work in practice. We all understand why you wanted Britain to be independent, but we really do have to be part of the EU. Yeah. Anyway, is it true or false that there was a claim? To be fair, it was a claim that Robert Generic, the immigrant, decided to go for a poo and left his ministerial box unguarded on the train. Is it true or false?
It is true,
It's
yes.
true.
It's absolutely true! OK, Costa Coffee is facing a backlash after it painted a van with a trans man who'd had a mastectomy. Is it true or false?
I think it is sadly true, and it's caused so much outrage across social media, and everyone's now saying to boycott Costa, because I think for them it's just, again, like corporate virtue signalling. Look how accepting we are. We've got, I think someone just like blue hair had the mastectomy, like advertised across their branding. And I think it's disgusting that they're capitalising off people's mental health problems. To sell coffee, essentially.
Is it sexist?
What's interesting is how this story has kind of brought in certain groups together. So you've had the kind of commentator and journalist Julie Bindel has been rather prophetic on this. I have to admit, on Twitter, she's kind of come out very heavy on it. You've had the kind of School Safety Council. They've come out and said it's deliberately picking on young girls because you have to admit it is a cartoon image, but it's very clearly that it's too mysterious.
It's with an
hidden agenda in mind.
But without being funny, it's saying that boobs are bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think there's going to be very few of the men watching and listening to this who would agree. But that's my view on it. That's why I ask if it's sexist.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a growing trend of this because I think Instagram, didn't they change their kind of policy over pictures over this, didn't they, about how you can show mastectomy scars? And I do think the original idea was for people who had had breast cancer to kind of show that, you know, you could get through it and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it was, again, something that has been stolen by the trans community and it has been pushed back in a different way. This is again and again and again. We see these people take these really good movies, these really good ideas, pervert them and throw them back in an insidious way.
I mean, I will say this to you, Anna, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but there's a big difference between accepting someone who's had breast cancer who doesn't feel or is not able to have some sort of replacement breast and looking at this from a trans point of view. Those are two entirely different things.
Exactly, and I think for them it'd be incredibly insulting because they're obviously put in a position where they have to do that because of medical problems, whereas you've got the trans community who have taken this away from them and made it again about their agenda that they're just perpetuating across all parts of our society. And now Costa have jumped on the wagon to try, you know, just to say like, oh, look, we're accepting. And I think that this is, again, the fact that they're capitalising off people's poor mental health conditions. I think it's just disgusting. We've got to keep criticising.
Lois, I don't expect you to have the answer to this question, but if you could enlighten me, it'd be fantastic.
Go on.
What do trans men with double mastectomies have to do with selling coffee?
Yeah, ESG scoring, probably.
Okay.
Yes, I imagine it's all to do with them, as we've talked about it before, ticking some boxes so they can borrow money on the market.
Just explain ESG in full to people who are not yet familiar.
Right, so ESG is a corporate structure, an adherence structure that you have to conform to so that you can basically run your business, so that you can have a bank account, so that you can borrow money on the markets or conform to have shareholders, everything like that. And it means it's how woke you are, basically. So that's why you have companies that have no interest whatsoever, or seemingly should have no interest in, for example, trans issues or BLM, having the flags and everything all over their stuff. Because if they don't, even though it will affect their actual bottom line in terms of sales, it will, sorry.
I'll tell you who took down their trans flag very quickly.
Who's that?
Coots. But sticking with you, Lois, this whole thing about Nigel Farage is part of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all part of the same thing. If you've got the wrong views that don't adhere to the woke ESG scoring, then you will be cancelled. You will be removed. But one interesting thing about the Costa thing, the girl that's actually the trans man, the former female or whatever, they've actually kept glossy big lips on it. I don't know if you noticed that. And that's so you definitely know that it is supposed to be someone that was a woman.
So actually, what you're saying here is they want to be absolutely clear that this is somebody who is attempting to transition.
Yeah. So, and I also think it's very prejudiced against gay women, and that's why gay women are very opposed to all this stuff, because it's saying, you said a minute ago, is this sexist? I think yes, it is to gay women, because they don't have to be men. They're just gay women.
Okay. Well, by the way, the rule on gay people being forced to transition is in Iran. They've had it for a long time. Anyway, James, I can't wait to ask you this question. James,
brace yourself.
Your newspaper or your magazine, Country Squire magazine, what's its ESG score?
Honestly, what's the version of like Ofcom but for newspapers? I forget what it's called. Whatever it's called.
Yeah, okay.
I was reported to it for writing an article called "Why Are So Many Conservatives Gay?" You know, I was saying there's different species of gay and stuff like that. And anyway, someone reported me to it for saying that it's the most virulently homophobic thing they've ever read.
They said that you were homophobic.
Yeah, and I said, well, good luck with reporting me for homophobia. I mean, I'm currently divorcing a man.
Maybe that's because you're homophobic, that you're getting divorced.
Yes, this internalised homophobia.
Yeah, what actually happened was James never intended to marry a man. He just got very, very confused after a drunken night out, and is now demanding that because Vera has a penis, she can no longer be.
An annulment is required.
I was going to say, I just sorry to interrupt there, Anna, but I just want to pick up on this ESG score thing, because this is another prime example of, because when this started, we have to remember this isn't a new thing. It's been around since about 2008, 2009. 1999. It was introduced by Kofi Annan realistically at the UN over what was known as Global Compact, which is about 15,000 major companies got together.
Wait a minute, global communism.
Global Compact.
Oh,
Maybe
right, sorry.
global communism.
Right.
But it was about this idea that if companies adhered to these 10 principles of the United Nations, then basically it just allowed them to get a lower rate of interest on borrowing. That was the original idea of it. But as per usual, again, these people have run amok with it, gone mental, and now this is what it's about, trans stuff. It was never about any of that stuff when it first started.
But just very quickly, Pete, before we move on, when I look at this, are we just in a position whichever way we vote, whatever we do, it's always going to be hijacked by these people? Because I just feel like they game the system better than us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they've managed to somehow position themselves in incredibly powerful positions that, most importantly, do not require you to be elected to that position.
Yes.
And that is the most insidious bit about all of this, is you didn't vote for it. Nobody voted for any of this stuff, yet it has affected every single aspect of your life. And that is why it has to be removed, or at least be put forward in manifestos and by politicians. If a politician comes up and says, I believe in this, isn't this, fine, because I can either vote for you or I don't vote for you.
But
when it's done by corporations, when it's done by charities, when it's done by all these different groups, that is when it is a problem, because the influence that they have is massive now, and it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped.
Lois?
Yeah, I was just saying, I totally agree with you 100%. But what about when every single party has the same policy?
Yeah.
Like net zero, for example. Sorry to keep banging on about net zero. But, if they've all got the ULEZ policy, if they've all got the LTN, if they've all got the 15-minute cities and this and that, then who do you vote for?
Absolutely. Hang on. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the next question. But first of all, I'm going to ask you whether Costa Coffee has been in trouble over trans man with a mastectomy. Oh, I get confused.
Every week you get this wrong.
Right, but I can't work it out, because the problem is, when I talk to my dad on the phone, he asks me one question. You know what it is on the trans issue. Is this true or is it false?
It is true.
It's
true.
absolutely true. 500 points. It's a tour de force.
That was The Woke That Was, continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
An NHS advisor has said that staff should wear gratitude ponchos in order to make them feel more appreciated. It's a poncho that signifies gratitude. Is it true or false?
Who has to wear the poncho?
The staff.
Yeah.
What, to say thank you to who?
Themselves.
Okay, no, so I actually know a bit about that.
No, don't help.
No, because it's hilarious. It's genuinely the funniest thing I've ever read.
Pete, tell
so
us.
somebody sent it to me because I hate this stuff. So basically what it is...
So they send it to
yeah, because they just like to get me really angry in the morning. But what it is it's like in these HR departments, like this kind of team building thing, every member of staff has to put a poncho on, made of plain paper, and you write, other people write on what they're happy about you, and what they think you bring to the team and stuff. Basically, it's the stuff you do with 4-year-olds.
Last day of school, when you got the shirt.
It's that kind of stuff. And I'm like, not being funny. These are supposed to be, doctors and nurses and people running hospitals. And it's also infected in other bits of corporate world. I'm telling you right now, if my work ever came to me and said, do this, I would legitimately quit on the spot.
Okay. Let me tell you, Pete, we'll be doing it next week.
All right, I'll see you later.
No, actually, I'll tell you what, we've got our first anniversary party coming up, but that was the work that was.
Excellent.
I will get gratitude ponchos.
Oh, no. I am not wearing a gratitude poncho. James, would you wear a gratitude poncho?
No, I'd be too scared of what you'd write.
That's right. That was legitimately my fear as well.
It's pathetic, though, isn't it? I mean, I just think that we live now in a sort of infantile society where everybody, nobody can keep themselves. Everybody's meddling in each other's business. Everybody's obsessed with sort of changing the rules, whatever. People should just get on with their life. Do you know what I do after this show? I just go for a beer and be happy.
Yeah, go for a beer and be happy. You know the other thing about these ponchos as well, it's not enough that someone might say, oh, thank you so much for looking after me or whatever. Everyone has to see you've been thanked. And it's like a physical extension of a social media like.
Yeah, it is.
You're walking around with all your likes on you.
That's a really good. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's a really good point about how kind of like narcissistic.
It's very narcissistic.
I've got a very good friend of mine who's got a really rather good job in Switzerland, and her grandfather, sadly, her grandfather was dying in the old people's home, and she couldn't get there on time to sit at his deathbed. So the two women who worked in the nursing home who stood by his bed, she gave a holiday to Benidorm to, and they were fired for bribery.
What?
Can you believe
What
that?
is wrong with this
That's
country?
horrendous,
Oh,
isn't
that's
it?
awful.
They lost their jobs over it. And I said, what did you do? And she said, well, I mean, I didn't want to give them more than 400 quid each. So that was the end of it. Yeah, they lost their entire career.
If only they'd been wearing gratitude ponchos.
If you'd been able,
They'd still have their jobs.
let me just say, if she could have signed the gratitude poncho, that would have saved their jobs. So this means this is a good idea. But is the story true or is it false?
It's true.
We say
It's
true.
absolutely true. Pete and Anna. 75% of people living in Britain say it's becoming a worse place to live. Is that true or false?
I think this is false. I thought it'd be higher. But no, so I presume this is to do with rising taxes, things to do with the NHS being in disarray and all the rest of it. But there is one element of all of this that I don't think that we haven't really talked about in quite some time, and it's the L word. It's not love, lockdown.
Lesbian.
Lockdown.
Yeah.
Every problem that we've got in this country right now, which is why everybody keeps thinking it's so terrible, was exacerbated by lockdown. If you, in my opinion, if you advocated for lockdown, you're not allowed to complain about the cost of living.
No.
You're not allowed to complain about the NHS waiting list because this is the consequence of your actions.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah.
Amen to that. I mean, I just wonder, you know, I've got a friend of mine who's come from abroad recently, and his view on it is that Britain is effectively a hostile environment to people who actually live here. And his view is that Britain wants unlimited immigration effectively because they're trying to bully us out and get new people in, which is a bit crazy. But at the end of the day, when you look at all the paperwork, when you look at the deliberate cost of living crisis, when you look at the NHS mucking up, when you look at the way that all of our businesses are against us, when you look at every political party agreeing with each other, then you do think to yourself, it is effectively a hostile environment.
It actually is, and I think every infrastructure in our British society actually just needs to be overhauled top to bottom, because I think that it's just become so broken. It's been exacerbated by lockdown and the broken sort of party system that we have at the moment. The Conservatives have completely messed up time and time again. And I think, particularly for young people, I think they're feeling very disillusioned in this country, which is why I know a lot of people that have now actually left, or like, you know, for example, done the working holiday visa in Australia, just because they've become so fed up with this country that they're literally just leaving. You've got the Peter Hitchens of like sort of, you know, he's been telling everyone just, you know, Britain's doomed, everyone leave. And I don't necessarily agree that everyone should just abandon ship. No. I think that we just need a complete reform of our current systems and stop the people just being so disillusioned.
Is the plan, Pete, that every single nation in the world, every single nation in Europe and North America will be multicultural?
I think, that's been policy for decades now.
Yes.
But I want to just pick up on something Anna just said there about how everything needs an overhaul. And I think that's because for a long time, British policy was basically, we'll fix around the edges, and then we'll just kick the problem into the long grass. And it's all come back to bite us. And then as lockdown has just basically been gasoline on the fire. That's basically what has happened. And it's because nobody has taken responsibility for anything that's gone wrong. We've had low growth, low wages, stagnation, and productivity in this country is non-existent. So,
James, what is the view of the countryside?
Country squire.
Let's just be clear. Of all the things the producer ever said to me, throw to James and ask him what the view of the countryside is. Right, the countryside, just to be clear, is not a human. It's a piece of land.
Shouldn't it be country squire?
I don't think I can be a spokesperson for the countryside. I live in Chiswick in the moment, but I will say that.
I live in Chiswick.
But, you know, I mean, the prices, though, the rental in London, it's getting so bad. I actually would confess to any crime so that I could go to prison and, as that guy, not pay any rent. I saw a garage for sale that stores one car, £210,000 in London. I mean, so if I work really hard in a few years' time, I might be able to get a mortgage on a garage.
Do 75% of British people think that it's a worse place to live? Is that true or is it false?
True?
I think it's true. Yeah, let's go
true.
true.
It's absolutely true! Oh, God, it's one of those.
Oh, no.
A grandmother has been banned from a church in Brighton for wearing a crucifix necklace instead of the pride flag.
This sounds a bit like a step beyond a step too
But
far.
I don't know, if they were organising some sort of pride event and everyone had to attend, everyone attending had to wear one, then who knows?
Well, sometimes I think that, you know, the other big guy has taken over the Church of England, and by that I mean Satan.
Yeah,
You know, there doesn't seem to be very many Christian values going on.
But I don't think...
And I'm a devout Christian.
But I don't think, Lois, the Church of England particularly is interested in religion anymore, is it? The bishops really are much more political figures than they are religious figures. Or am I wrong? I mean, I'm a Catholic, so I'm not in the same.
Well,
they're all
denomination.
avowed socialists.
Well, I'm High Church of England, so I mean, the church that I go to is very traditional, apart from the fact that my priest lives with a man. But
Gay priest?
That seems traditional.
Who would have thunk it? But you know, we are very, very traditional and everything. But actually, there is a massive disconnect between as you say, the highly politicized, very woke people at the top, and the actual people who attend the services. The congregations just aren't like that. Well, I don't know about North London, because since I moved to London, I've been going to church in Primrose Hill. They're a little bit woke. A little
My
bit.
local community, I was just going to say, there's a massive progressive flag that's been hung. So it's got the Black Lives Matter symbol and the LGBTQIA.
And Free Palestine is on that.
Yeah. And I think the church has, in itself, has become so ideologically captured by this agenda that they're perpetuating. I mean, there were religious leaders actually saying, "Is Jesus a man?" They were actually questioning his gender, which is absolutely ridiculous and blasphemous, I think, to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting you say that, because I think it's the Archbishop of York was on the Daily Mail's woke list, the 2023 woke list. And as was the Archbishop of Canterbury, actually, because the Archbishop of York said the problem of Our Father was the problem of the patriarchy.
Oh my God!
And he had the problem with the Lord's Prayer, and I'm like, I don't really have much to say on this. I'm not an overly religious person, but I have to admit, it's surely the Lord's Prayer is kind of one of the remits to be the Archbishop of anywhere.
Yeah, unbelievable.
One thing that amazed me is when they're all talking about poverty, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to say this: the Church of England enjoys tax-exempt status.
Yeah.
All of these grace and favour properties could easily be repurposed to put homeless people in. You look at the Archbishop of Canterbury, what was it? New library, 28 million?
Yeah.
And as somebody said to me, oh, well, he's got a lot of books. Oh, well, in that case...
I've got a lot of books. I haven't got 28 million quid library.
I've got a lot of magazines, but then again, I'm old school.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's our generation, though.
The way you offend people, or I always do, is just say you're a Freemason.
Yeah.
They love that. They love that. Okay, so has a grandmother been banned from a church in Brighton for wearing a crucifix rather than a pride flag? Is it true or is it false?
I think on the information we have, we've got to say false.
False.
It is absolutely false! Another absolute corker from the upper lip. I think they're actually starting to fool people on that website.
I was going to say, I think that one got me. I thought that was true, actually.
Okay, Nigel Farage has said that Coots have offered to reinstate his bank account. Is it true or false?
Oh, this story just keeps on giving, doesn't it?
And I think it's actually awful, because if you've got, for example, if you've got opinions that go against the mainstream narrative, you can literally have your bank account closed and be excluded from society for just saying something that is against the mainstream. It's like you've got these sort of woke people who come out, and if they say, celebrate the trans agenda, for example, or anything that kind of signifies the woke agenda, you'll have everyone across social media celebrating them for saying this. But then if you say anything controversial, you'll literally get excluded from society for doing that. So, for example, when I go to the Kelly J. Keen's Let Women Speak event, you've got women who actually have to mask up and cover themselves up when they do their talks, in case they get recognised by their workplace and fired. Yeah, they will get fired for speaking up about these issues just because they want to have, protect their rights.
I've always wanted to actually go to that and support the women there, but clearly because it's supposed to be a women-only space, you can't really do that.
Well, men go as well. Men
do
go.
they?
Yeah, no, men do come and they come and watch and just support the women there.
Oh, okay.
It is a space for
Should we
women.
all go?
Yeah,
We should go.
Yeah.
So I'll go.
I'll take you all.
The good thing is about it being a women event, but the quality of the baking's very
Yeah.
good. Oh, that's a bit
And nice
sexy.
toilets. They'll
Yeah.
be nice and clean.
Yeah, but
David.
I can say, with the Nigel
Nice
Farage
clean
thing-
toilets. Robert Jenrick will be delighted.
Yeah, delighted on that one. But no, so Nigel's been offered his bank accounts back. He hasn't confirmed whether he's going to take state them at time of recording, just to make that clear. But Peter Flavel, who was the former CEO, he's finally resigned. I don't know why it took him this long to do it. But now the big question is about this guy called Howard Davies, who's the chairman of the NatWest Group.
Yeah, he's still in place.
He's still in place. But interestingly, the Economic Secretary of the Treasury, which is a Conservative MP called Andrew Griffith, has been brought out by the FCA to say, like, he's got to stay in place for the stability of the bank. And I'm like, well, hello.
And is he the same Howard from the Nationwide?
But with the glasses.
The glasses.
No,
yeah.
but interestingly, he's really woke. He's known as one of the most woke people in the city. So,
what a surprise.
Yeah,
He's got
but
a
no,
senior
because he
position.
doesn't like being called the chairman. He's the chairperson.
Oh,
and
get a
like
grip.
he was one of Alison Rose's, who's the lady who resigned from the NatWest Group. He was like basically pushing her forward because she was the only female head of a high street banking group. So like he's really into this agenda, but it just begged the question about how far is Nigel willing to go with this? Is it, as I think he's still pursuing legal challenges, and I think he said he's costing him a fortune, I imagine, in legal fees already. So it just depends how long he's going to stick his teeth in. I'm right behind him on this. I think once we take down the banking sector, get rid of woke in the banking sector, I think a lot of this other woke stuff will start to fall.
I totally agree. Okay, is it true or false that Nigel Farage says that Coots have given him back his bank account? Is it
It's
true or
true,
false?
yes, it's true.
It's absolutely true. So Lois and James have got 45 points, but the unbelievable breakout stars are Pete and Anna, who got 523 points. Okay, I'm off now to help assist with that prison cooking that goes now to you. It's a month's supply of undefinable slop. Until next week, goodbye.
Yay!